Hello, everyone.
Great. Hello.
Hi, Lucyne. Hey, Rock. Good to see you.
You too, Neil. Hello. Hello, everyone else.
Hello, everyone.
We'll just give it a couple minutes before we get started. Let some more people trickle in. Hi, Mary. Hello, Eileen. Thanks for joining.
Yeah. I guess it's an early morning in the US, if that's where most people are.
Yeah, particularly West Coast.
Yes.
Netherlands. Oh, cool. Yeah, if you join, put in where you're calling in from. On our last program, we had, I think it was 7 countries represented. It was pretty incredible. Portugal, France.
Oh, nice. Good European cohort.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Manchester, New Jersey, North Carolina,
Wow.
Stanford, New York.
Fantastic group.
Amazing.
Neil, so far you're the only one on Pacific time.
Yeah, I
A
don't
real,
know
a
how
real
I,
eager beaver.
I don't know how I let it get scheduled at this time.
Oh, the Seattle.
Seattle. Okay, thank you,
Nice.
Kelly. Wow.
Yeah.
Well done for getting it.
All right, maybe we can
I think probably we
get started.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, welcome everyone, and thanks so much for joining. My name's Neil Markey. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Beckley Retreats, and I'm very happy to be hosting this Beckley Talk. It's our second one. Amanda and I did one a few weeks ago, and this is part of our Psychedelic Renaissance series, and we have 2 really special guests and friends and coworkers on today. And just a couple of logistics before we jump in. We're going to have the last part of the session for quick Q&A. And so as we go, if you have questions, please just go ahead and type them into the chat, and then I'll start grabbing them as we go, and then we'll make sure that we have time to get to those at the end. And today, for this session, we're going to be talking about community and really the power of doing this work in groups. You can do psychedelics in many different ways. You can do them by yourself. You can do them one-on-one with a therapist. But there's something really special that happens when a group of people come together with a group of trained facilitators and do this work together. So we'll be talking about the benefits and the why and some of the history. And today we have Rock Feilding-Mellen, also known famously as Amanda Fielding's son. He has a really incredible story of transformation and benefiting from psychedelics that I don't think we'll get a lot of time for today, but hopefully we'll get to tell it in a later session. Him and his brother Cosmo, who runs Beckley Psytech, are really now taking over and helping lead this next phase of their mother's legacy. And Amanda's vision was always really to improve the understanding and accessibility of these pretty amazing plants and compounds. So it's a real honor to get to work with them both. And excitingly, this has just happened recently, so it's really special for me to say, but Amanda was just named the queen of the psychedelic renaissance in The Economist. And for those that know The Economist, it's a publication that might not have written about psychedelics a few years ago. So the world is changing rapidly. It's promising. And Rock will be interviewing Lucyne, and Lucyne is one of our lead facilitators, and she has a fascinating background. She's been doing this work for decades, and we love, her training and the heart that she brings to this work. Not only is she kind of Western psychotherapy trained, right? So has that credentialing and formal schooling that most of us would recognize, but she also has deep experience with indigenous tradition. She's led over 1,000 psychedelic ceremonies. So she brings a really, really unique way of leading these sessions into the programs. And with that, I will hand it over to Rock to get us started.
Great. Thank you, Neil, for that very kind introduction. If I may, before I start the conversation with Lucyne, I'd like to take a few minutes just to kind of really explain why my mother brother and I decided that Beckley Retreats is such a important, critical piece of the wider ecosystem of organizations that we're currently building. Now, my guess is that most of our audience today will have read about or heard about a lot of the scientific research and indeed the investment that is happening across the world, exploring the ways in which certain psychedelic compounds can be used as pharmaceutical medicines to help treat specific mental illnesses. As it happens, for the last 25 years, my mother has been at the very vanguard of that research. And as Neil alluded to, my brother is currently leading on our efforts at Beckley Psytech, which is a drug development company doing just that. So as a family, we have been very involved in and are very supportive of the medicalized use of psychedelics. However, ever since she first tried LSD back in 1965, my mother has been convinced that psychedelics can be much more than just a treatment for those who are ill. She believes very strongly that they can also be pivotal tools for expanding human consciousness. Just like her late friends and thought partners, Albert Hoffman and Anne and Sasha Shulgin, she knows that the careful and reverent use of psychedelics within the right set and setting can enable individuals to do the difficult inner work that is needed for really meaningful transformation and impactful personal development. And I suppose it's our hope that when enough individuals begin doing that important inner work, the positive changes will then actually ripple out into our wider communities. And we hope that's when our societies will really begin to be able to heal the rifts and overcome the many and varied crises that our world faces today. And so I suppose as global interest in psychedelics began to boom, we decided that it was crucially important for us as a family to do what we can to ensure that the so-called healthy normals, and not just those of us who face mental health challenges, have the opportunity to experience the transformational power of psychedelics in really safe, legal, and expertly designed and curated spaces. Hence really why we are so delighted and proud to be doing this work with Neil, Jaya, Alexandra, Anne, Vian, and the whole team at Beckley Retreats. And it's with that wider mission and hope that I just outlined in mind, that really everything that the team at Beckley Retreats does is intended to bridge the gap between the Western and the indigenous approaches, between modern research and ancient wisdom, and really most broadly between science and ceremony. And so I suppose that now brings us around to our conversation today with Lucyne, who, as Neil said, was our first lead facilitator and who's been instrumental in helping to shape and design our overall program, including the preparation and integration protocols, which are such critically important components of that. Now, Lucyne, you were uniquely placed for that role because of this dual training that Neil mentioned. You are a licensed and practicing psychotherapist in the UK, and you've also had 20 years training as a shaman in specific indigenous lineages. And so I'd love to start us off today by asking you to really try and explain how and why you got to where you are today. Just quickly, before you do, I want to make clear to our audience that when you are working at a Beckley retreat, you are doing so in the capacity as a lead facilitator, not as a licensed psychotherapist. I think there is a kind of important distinction there. But with that in mind, Lucyne, please try and tell us a bit about how you got to where you are now.
Thank you so much for kind introductions, everyone. It's a real honor to be at Beckley and doing this work. And it's been a long journey here. It started 2 decades ago, 20 years ago, where I found myself in my early 20s, confused, lost, quite anxious, looking for meaning, looking for some help. And I came upon a newspaper article that was a journalist had been out to the jungle and tried ayahuasca. And this is sort of early internet times. Off I went to the jungle and just transformed myself from the inside out, working with indigenous elders. Actually, it was in Brazil, but they were Colombian shamans, and I just felt like my heart opened, my whole sense of gratitude and being present, and something so deeply shifted within me that I was looking for, that I came home and I enrolled my mom, my auntie, my mum's boyfriend, my friends, and started soon after, sort of, I feel like the plant sort of recruited me to help, to bring people. And so I formed one of the very, very early internet companies of ayaaya.com, where I would forge groups of people to come together and bring them to trained facilitators. And I was really sort of responsible for helping to bring people and prepare people for that experience. And did a lot of training over the years. And while I was working with these people in Brazil, I came across a psychotherapist who was also a shamanic practitioner. And she said to me, it's very important that you train in psychotherapy. So my mid-20s, I started to train about 15 years ago as a psychotherapist. And really all my work has been about how do we bridge these incredibly profound experiences that nature offers us through plants and fungi, and how do we make sense of them in a modern context, and how can we use modern psychology and neuroscience and all of the tools that we have access to combine them and make them useful and make them beneficial and make them long lasting. And that was my experience with myself. I was sort of a human guinea pig of trialing and testing what worked, and eventually working with clients, because back in these days, there weren't preparation programs, integration programs. It was, these words are sort of new in the Renaissance, but really we're learning how to be more responsible with them in a modern context. And that's really important and really vital to get the most out of it, which we do here at Beckley.
And Lucyne, a lot of people, I think, tend to focus on the differences between Western psychology and indigenous contemplative or plant medicine practices. I'd love, given your history and experience, what do you think really, how do they complement each other? What are the commonalities and the complementary parts between those two approaches?
Well, I think that we're starting to see more of the complement and more of the similarities, because science is starting to prove a lot of what the indigenous people have known for thousands and thousands of years. They carried the torch of working with these sacred substances in ceremonial ways, and they have a very, very deep respect of nature and working. And now science is coming along, and we're seeing they're almost proving what folk research has known for millennia. And some of these examples are, many Native American traditions say we're healing 7 generations forward and 7 generations past. A lot of people have heard of this, that it's this way that we're not just doing the work for ourselves, we're doing it for our ancestors and our children. And we might know this on some level, but science, neuroscience is starting to show research. For instance, there's some experiments that they've been doing in Emory Medical School in Atlanta, and it's looking at mice. And mice share, I think, over 80% of the same genetic makeup as humans. And we can follow them because they can have offspring every 12 to 20 weeks. So it's quite easy to see the impact of what happens. And they took something very innocuous like cherry blossom. And unfortunately and sadly, they tasered these mice. And they just did it with male mice. And then they would take the sperm and they would put it into female mice. And 3 generations later, they'd have none of any tasering, but they felt the nervous system sort of repercussions 3 generations later with the mice. So they were having shivering responses and shaking responses to the cherry blossom,
Amazing.
although they'd never had that experience. So that's just a little bit of neuroscience that's starting to show, and there's lots of examples of that out there, that we're starting to see that we do inherit more from our ancestors than we might have ordinarily have thought. And that doesn't mean that we're doomed, you know, to living out the destiny. There's lots that we can do, and we need powerful tools like psychedelics to start to work on a deep subconscious level to clear out and to balance and to regulate ourselves, to be present in the moment.
Amazing. I love that. And I think you're right. I think that is, you know, science is in a way catching up across the board with a lot of that ancient wisdom, folk research, as you describe it. Now, Lucyne, with all that in mind, and given your kind of the role you've played in helping, as I say, to shape the Beckley Retreats program, I think it'd be great for our audience if you could talk them through. And I think we don't have to go into the detail of the preparation and the integration, because I think we might have a separate session on that. But in that kind of 5 or 6 day retreat in person, I'd love you to tell us a bit about the different modalities and kind of the ways in which we have tried to design the optimal setting for participants.
Yeah, so just briefly, we always obviously make sure that everyone's very well screened, because we need to have a certain amount of robustness to be doing this work. So we have a very good screening process, and then just briefly on the preparation process, we really orientate people towards the right mindset to come in and give them lots of preparation tools. And everybody has a chance to meet each other online before, so we're already building connections and community. And then we come onto the retreat, and it's an incredibly powerful process to watch people to go from quite anxious, hard-shelled exteriors to watching them going through all the modalities that help to peel off the layers of all of the defenses and our conditioning, and all of it's designed to work on different levels of the being to come into more wholeness. And so we'll start the days with yoga and movement and meditation. So all of that's great for becoming more present, feeling what's in our body. And then we do breath work, which is a deep, deep emotional cleansing, great to use before psychedelics. So we've already cleared a lot before we're entering, and we're well prepared. And then we have intention circles and prayers and blessings, and we go into ceremonial space, and it's so well facilitated by all of this incredible team that all have different gifts and superpowers of working in different ways, and really the emotional support that's there for the participants. They feel so well held that they can open and they can let go, and they can know that that someone's there for them no matter what's going to happen. And it's really led by the music. There's a lot of live music. I sing. We have collected songs that I'm really thankful from different indigenous lineages that I work with, like the Huni Quinn or the Yawanawa tribes in Brazil, or Santo Daime in Brazil. Many different English songs and from the East, and mantras, and all of these different songs that work as a healing force in ceremony. Ikaros from the Shipibos that I've learned. So these songs are very, very potent, powerful medicine, if you like, and they work in the space to really guide in different ways the experience. So some of it will be provoking new energy in the space, some of it may be tapping into biographical things that happened in our lives, but it's like an anchor to the experience that we can keep coming back to. So the power of sound is really an important component to what we're doing. And
the music, I have to say, the live music that you and the team do it's phenomenal. It's so powerful and such an important part of it during the ceremonies themselves. But I was actually also, again, personal anecdote, but I remember the first time I did breath work, you were leading it, it's holotropic breath work. And I remember you saying at the beginning that, you know, you often have, I can't remember the percentage, 10 or 20% of people who at the end of the retreat say that breath work is more kind of powerful or like releasing than the psilocybin ceremonies. And I was like, get real. And that, I mean, the breath work is extraordinary as a kind of preparation, the release, the emotion, what one taps into. So all of these different modalities that the team have kind of brought together, they really do like work as a whole, don't they? And I think the other thing which I just want to make sure we make people understand is it's on that 5 days, there's quite a lot of space for people also to integrate. And that middle day, there are 2 ceremonies, one on day 2 and one on day 4. But day 3 and the integration there is really important. Do you want to talk a bit more about that?
Sure. We have integration circles, and we have time to share, and we use art, and we have ways of coming together. But there's also space. So if people want to go, if we're in Jamaica, which is beautiful, we're also working in beautiful countries, or the Netherlands, we can go for walks in the forest, we can sit by the fire, or we can go to the river or the sea if we're in Jamaica. So there's all of the, and we can have massages, and there's time for reflection and allowing yourself to connect with the guests, which is a really big part of it as well. And there's also, we come together in fire ceremony, and we allow ourselves to release, and there's the power of ritual and all sorts of beautiful interwoven threads that really enable it to be this really well contained, deeply transformative experience.
Absolutely. And so if we get on to the kind of the main topic of doing this work in a group setting rather than one-on-one, as I say, you're a practicing psychotherapist in the UK, and so I know that a lot of the work you do is one-on-one between you and your clients. So you have experience both, working on that one-on-one basis and leading this group type work. Can you tell us a bit why you think, especially for these psychedelic kind of transformational processes, programs, the group work is particularly powerful?
Well, they definitely are incredibly powerful to come together in a group. There's something very, very, very powerful if you have the opportunity to do that. And firstly, if people come along for 1 hour a week to psychotherapy, that's good ongoing support. But we have so much that we're taking on in modern life. We have so much stress. We have so much busyness. We have so much overwhelm. We have so many roles and responsibilities. And a lot of the time, we're quite disconnected from our feelings, we're quite disconnected from our bodies, we're quite disconnected from nature. That's just modern living for most people. And we have this opportunity to slow down, to take a step out of our normal circumstances, and to take off the masks that we wear, to take off all of the layers of our conditioning, and to be really held in a space where it's sort of, often the norms is, fit in, don't burden others. There's a lot of society norms that we have, particularly in England, the stiff upper lip of just get on with it. And, but we all have it in different cultures. We all have this way that we're just living on with the accelerator down. Mm-hmm. And here we are on the retreats, and we're encouraged, really encouraged, to feel our feelings, to come into our body, to embrace whatever's here, to not distract, to not push away, but to keep allowing with compassion, with kindness. And there's a lot of holding in that. And we start to come out of our heads, and we start to feel more, and we start to share vulnerabilities. And then we, as a group, we start to realize, oh, we're not all that different. We're not all that isolated. That there's this shared humanity that starts to happen. And we realize underneath all of our defenses and protective layers, we all just really want the same thing, which is just to love and be loved. And we have this opportunity to come together in a group and to feel connected and to feel like we belong, which is very much sort of the indigenous ways of our ancestors, of all, that came before, was to be more connected to the land and more connected to each other.
And there's something,
and really,
sorry, I was just going to say, there is something particularly, I know that quite a lot of people come as part of a couple, either with a friend or a partner, but a lot of people also come on their own. When I've done that on my own. And so you are there in a group of what, like 15 to 20, mainly strangers. You're lucky if you know one or two people. But while it seems potentially quite daunting, there is something I found personally very, like, there's almost a primordial, like, humanity in that ability to open up and be vulnerable and witness the vulnerability of strangers in a safe, loving space with that music, with that sharing. And as you say, the depth of the connections and bonds that are built in that process is extraordinary. I know that people, maintain those connections, and that sense of belonging to this kind of group is really profound, isn't it?
Unbelievable. Yeah, it's so beautiful to watch how everyone is so generous with each other, and supportive of each other. And as we sort of discover that we all are quite similar underneath, we all have some self-doubt, we all have some fears, we all have hopes, we all have this sort of shared humanity, and we share it. What's that?
Shadows.
Shadows.
Maybe
We all
some
have
more
our
than
shadows.
others. Maybe.
We all have it. We all have it. And and we see it, and we recognize that it's just humanness. It's such a relief, and we feel like, oh, I'm not strange, I'm actually normal. And that's really, uniting. And I think the fungi are great teachers of this, because the mycelium networks go under the ground and they form symbiotic relationships with plants. Every plant has fungi in it. It's 650 million years old. It's got wisdom, and the wisdom it carries is, let's collaborate, let's cooperate, let's come together. And that's what it does naturally and organically, and then it helps us to do the same.
And you're right, and there's a connection not just to one's kind of inner self and to the other kind of strangers that one meets on the retreat, but actually also to nature, isn't there? There is that, it's a kind of multi-leveled connection that one comes back with, I think.
Definitely. We realize that particularly when we take these psychedelics, that we're living in quite a limited perception of reality, and very human centric. And as we listen to nature, we start to be able to listen to the living world and get it's so important nowadays, particularly whether we start to really take in that we're all part of the same family, the same earth. So yeah, it really opens us up to something transpersonal.
And tell me, like, we've focused so far on the kind of the experience for the participants being in a group, but I'm also interested, you and by the way, I should make very clear to the audience that luckily for them, they never have to worry about me being their facilitator. I only ever attend as a participant. But what is it like working, in that group setting for the facilitators? Is it very different from working in a one-on-one setting?
It's the same. I feel like we sort of realize that, although we're in the roles of facilitator and we have, obviously the experience to be there, we're feeling the same energy as everyone else, which is just, we're returning to love, and love breeds more love. And we're feeling that. We start off and we can feel the nervousness, and we're a bit nervous too. And we all start to let go together. And we all and it's the power of community. There's something truly transformative of coming together and doing our emotional cleaning together, and becoming more kind and compassionate together, becoming better humans together, and being accepted. And for myself, I feel so transformed from the experience. I just, to be able to witness all of that love, to be a part of it, to be co-creating with it. It's very much a co-creation, and I benefit enormously from it.
And again, I know that's like that sense of the connectedness of the group, and like that feeling of belonging. I do think then beyond the retreat, that 6-week integration protocol that we have, that is another very important part of kind of continuing to strengthen that sense of belonging and connectedness, isn't it? Because I mean, actually on the programs I've been a participant on, I remember being amazed at, everyone who comes on these retreats typically has very busy lives, between family and careers and, you know, other activities and passions and interests. And so, you know, a 6-week integration program, which requires weekly meetings and daily practices, it's amazing that from what I've seen, nearly everyone really does commit to that. And that bonding, that sense of cohesion amongst the group does then continue afterwards, doesn't it?
It's so wonderful because we have this ongoing support. So we have the support with each other, but then we feel this community and we come together, and some of us will be having ups, some of us will be having downs, some of us will be where we are, but we can continue to welcome and explore and grow together. And, you know, and I think that as part of being in the group as well, afterwards and during the retreat, is that we start to strengthen our empathy. You know, so much of us, we just want to, you know, we shut down in life and just try and get by. But to, you know, to see people we care about and have had shared experiences, maybe going through a struggle, our heart jumps out to them and they feel it. And so they're transmuted by that, impacted by that. But we come together and we become more empathic,
Okay.
and we've become more authentic. And so yes, it's wonderful to have the group support, and we're also doing daily practices. So we're continuing breath work, we're continuing different daily practices, and this is also really strengthening for that window of opportunity to continue rewiring and firing the neurons that we want to start to live by, rewiring our brain after the experience.
Amazing. Now, Lucyne, are you, in terms of power of the community, are there any other aspects which I might have missed that we need to, or should we move on to Q&A?
Well, maybe just one other thing is to say is that the Mazatec shamans I went to visit in Mexico, in the mountains, you know, they use this as a way of life. So it's really beautiful to go and spend time with them. It's very rustic and basic, but wonderful to see how they use this as a very natural, normal part of their life. And so if someone's sick in the family, they come together and they'll have a ceremony in a family way. And if there's been a death in the family, they come together. If they want to have a child, and they really use it as a guide and a teacher. And it was wonderful to see the sort of normalization of it as really just, you know, let's talk to nature and get some support here and really listen. And so I think that just coming back to the power of community, just looking at how it's been done in these groups for so long, and continuing that legacy, you know, not trying to appropriate, but really trying to honor what came before.
It is, I mean, we saw at the beginning, we were looking at where, you know, audience members come from, and it's from all over Europe, all over different parts of North America, hopefully from different parts of the world. And that is the same on the retreats that we host. And that does obviously then make that ongoing kind of community work more challenging. And a lot of it does have to be digital. But I know that Neil and the team at Beckley Retreats are actually, you know, thinking through how we as an organization can support more in-person kind of meetups and community events and those kind of additional offerings to kind of nurture and maintain that sense of, you know, belonging and mutual support, whereby people become friends and find in a way, their sponsors, supporters, so they can carry on doing that themselves. Are there any lessons from, you know, from the indigenous cultures that you think we should take for how to do that, bearing in mind the kind of international reach?
I think they have a very strong community family connection, and it's a spiritual one, and maybe we're not going to always find that in our families, but finding a family of affiliation or of choice where we find like-minded community, and we do find that on the retreat. And it's so wonderful to hear about. I hear about participants being in touch, connecting,
and
going on holiday together.
Very different, diverse. I mean, I know we won't mention any names, but there are examples from our retreats where people from very different backgrounds, who one slightly thought at the beginning, gosh, maybe this could be a bit of a clash, different political views have actually ended up really like bonding and staying close to afterwards. I mean, it does show the power of healing those rifts, doesn't it?
It was so beautiful and moving to see people that thought, oh, these, this is someone so opposite to me, so different to me, and actually ending up becoming really good friends. And just seeing, and that's possible on a microcosm of on retreats, what's possible for the world. It's really hopeful.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Neil, do you want to come back on? Hey there. I'm hoping,
Yes.
I have not been able to take my eyes off Lucyne, so I haven't been looking at the questions, but I'm hoping you're going to be able to.
Yeah, we have some good questions. And before we go to the questions, we'll get to answer some here, but we've started offering these one-on-one calls with some of the team. So if you're interested in learning more about the program or have some questions that you'd rather ask kind of personally, we're happy to do it. So I think you should have just had a window pop up on your screen, and you can get some time with the team. And our first question is, how do your retreats differ from other popular psilocybin retreat centers?
I feel like I've taken the sort of the best of 20 years of experience and really found ways of really integrating exercises and Beckley as a whole. We've come together and really formulated a very, very conducive package of tools that land very deeply. So I'd say that, I don't want to compare what other people are doing, but I really think that we do a really great model of honoring and respecting the indigenous works that we've learned from and been shared songs and other ways of, and also psychology and all of that stuff. So we're doing a really good job of bridging worlds, and we're using it's a very condensed, immersive, experiential process that really is getting great results.
And I would add, on a kind of slightly more mundane level, that we've taken great effort. I know Neil has been leading on this to get rigorous legal counsel in Jamaica, in the Netherlands, and in the US to ensure that everything we do at Beckley Retreats is lawful, which means that it has all sorts of other benefits around the insurances that we have in place and the other safety protocols, and being able to have proper trained nurses on site. So in terms of the safety that we offer, and again, I'm not saying that we're the only lawful psilocybin retreat out there, but those that it is something worth checking. Is there a solid legal opinion confirming that what's being offered is lawful and all the insurances and other protections are in place, both for the facilitators and the participants?
One other thing I might say about that is what I've known from working in many different retreat centers for many years and working on many retreats is the power of the facilitator team in its being in good health, of having really done your own inner work, and the connection and the honesty and the flow of that mirrors out. So really, like we get the right teams together, and the power of a strong facilitator team that's really in harmony is also really important. And yeah.
I think that's a really good point. And we are definitely one of, if not the most comprehensive total program, with the kind of 4 weeks preparation and then the 6 weeks integration afterwards, which a lot of, especially the kind of the ones which are less mindful of ensuring everything is done lawfully, maybe don't do quite as rigorously as we do.
Great. Our next question is from Diana, and it says, sounds like you're starting off with people in an early stage of self-discovery at retreats, assuming this is applicable for those who have done a significant amount of spiritual, philosophical work already?
I think it's for beginners and experienced people. And I think that what we're offering is really beneficial to both. We do get some people who do yearly retreats and have done for many years, and we do get people that are new. And I think that there's definitely something for both. The more inner work that you've already done, the more easeful it will probably be because you know yourself well. But either place, we really help beginners, along the way as well.
Yeah, I would say that we've had quite a mix of experience level on these programs. Generally, it is a lot of first time individuals that have had a lot of times like recreational use with psychedelics, or like a kind of a ceremony with one facilitator in a boombox or something like that, and then you get to experience kind of what we're doing, and they see that there's quite a difference. But then, just like Lucyne said, we've had people that have really, really, really long-term deep experience in meditation and psychedelics, and then still have pretty profound, meaningful experiences.
I would just say my mother's quite well experienced, and she says it was when she first came to her first Beckley retreat, she was very, very impressed by the team and the program, and had a very impactful time. So even people in their late 70s who've been doing it since the 60s can benefit.
All right, our next question is from Hannah. Okay, how do you approach accessibility, reciprocity, and considering much of your wisdom comes from Indigenous communities?
I continue to train and study. That's sort of my ongoing. I continue to go out. I'll do a few trips a year to go out to work with teachers and Indigenous wisdom keepers to keep connected myself, to keep doing my own inner work, and sharing what's been offered to me, sharing the songs that I've been taught, sharing what I've been permissioned to share, is what I would say from myself.
From the business, from the company's point of view, I know this is a kind of question that has been really something we've thought about from the very get-go when Neil and I and the team started brainstorming about this. And I think we've kind of looked at our benefit sharing or reciprocity kind of approach in and Neil, chip in if I miss anything, but in largely kind of, I think about 4 different areas where we think it's important that we do that. One is in terms of providing a degree of equitable access. We do acknowledge that these retreats, in order to do them really well and safely and with the kind of expertise that we've been talking about, they are expensive. But because of that, with that in mind, we have already developed a kind of scholarship program that will enable people from diverse and lower income backgrounds to apply for scholarship to come on one of these retreats. And then we've also thought very carefully about how we make sure to, as a business, to share back some of the benefit with the Indigenous cultures that people like Lucyne and our facilitators have learned so much from. And one part is about actually just being very explicit in acknowledging and respecting and paying due regard to those teachings. But we're also working, and it's early days, so I don't know to what extent we're allowed to mention it, but we are working with a specific charity in the US that is very much about sharing back the benefits with those communities. And then there's working with the actual local communities on the ground. So in Jamaica, we're going to, we're committed to one of our facilitators actually is one of the runs a cancer research institute there. So we're looking at working with her and also working with local schools and local community groups and projects on the ground. And finally, there is the element, given our kind of heritage with the Beckley Foundation, the scientific research there is helping to support ongoing real-world evidence research. In that, have I missed anything else, Neil? Is that?
Well, I'll just add, I think this is really important, right? And we've got to figure out a way to keep improving the accessibility. We've had scholarship slots in all of our retreats, and we'll continue to have those. We have a women's program coming up in October that is basically done at cost, so at a drastically reduced price for a group of women. We're fully sponsoring a program in the spring with a veteran nonprofit to bring a group of veterans down. So, I mean, we're small, but we're really trying to do as much as we can early because we believe in, that it's the right way to do this. It's the right way to do this work. And then, to me, longer term, I think what we're building here is we're building a bit of a playbook for how to do this work, right? So we're putting standards in place. We're building the protocols. We're learning how to build these teams, and at some point, once the laws change, I envision a world where we have these centers that are much closer to the communities, and we can get the costs drastically down. Now that'll take time. We can only move as fast as the laws will allow. But right now, we're doing what we can outside the U.S. with the hopes of being able to get these centers really close to people and the costs down. Next one from Sylvia. What makes someone's experience a true shift or change in a retreat as opposed to someone who doesn't? So.
Tough question. I don't know. I'm Lucyne will be more expert on this than me, just from, again, my own personal experience. I suppose what has become very clear to me through participating in these programs is that it's the realization that there's not really an end point. You start down this road of inner work and you begin that transformation process. I don't know if I'll ever end it. It's certainly I've got a long way to go myself. And I think one of the biggest shifts that I've benefited from is it's a sincere sense of gratitude and humility. It's the humility to realize how little I know and how much work there is to do.
I mean, I do see, I can't really think of someone at the end of a retreat and thinking they don't feel in that moment like they've been through a huge transformation, but the ongoing work is really the important work. It's, these substances and psychedelics, they show us really where that lies. They give us a lot of information on this is the work, to continue. So really we do a lot of that, in the integration, and then it's ongoing. So it's not a magic bullet. There is no magic bullet anywhere, but it's the closest thing I found to a deep transformational shift that I have to take responsibility to continue, and everybody on the retreat has to take responsibility to continue to peel off the layers of the eternal onion of who we think we are. That's ongoing life work.
What is the difference between psilocybin and ayahuasca, and why do you use one over the other at your retreats?
I can answer the second question if I leave Lucyne to answer the first part of the question. We use psilocybin because we are lawfully able to do so in Jamaica and psilocybin truffles in the Netherlands, whereas we haven't yet found a suitable location where we can lawfully do that with ayahuasca.
It's a great question, and I did start off, and I'm very grateful to ayahuasca because it gave me so many gifts and so much benefit. But it really got to the stage after decades of use where I was getting older, and it's a big experience, purgative and hard on the body, and And I felt like I started to move towards modalities that were more gentle, just generally. I was a bit more sort of gung ho and tough with myself in my earlier life. And I just started to move towards softer softer things, and for me working with the mushrooms, it was a softer way home, and I actually noticed more profound shifts from working with the mushrooms personally, because for me the ayahuasca took me to the most incredible multi-level universes, but how do you make sense of that and come home? And for me, I felt more like I was in a collaboration with the fungi, and I felt more empowered during the experience, and I felt I could move it more into my life easier. So that was just my personal experience.
I think also from the company's perspective, there is also an element, going back to the last question about reciprocity, and especially reciprocity towards the indigenous cultures and lineages from which we've learned, that the psilocybin mushrooms are more prevalent, and there is more indigenous use in the kind of North American and European cultures and societies from which we come. And I think that's quite important as well.
Definitely important. You know, we've lost the thread of our own indigenous roots, but it's we know that they've been used for many years in our own ancestry. So it's actually, but yeah, it works better with my body for sure. I can see that.
Great, thank you. Our next question is from Mandy. How do you bridge the time for the retreat with a working person's life and committing to both your responsibilities in life and a deep commitment to the retreat? Good question.
Really great question. I think we actually, and this is just one aspect, but we had quite a debate internally about how to structure the 5-day or 6-day in-person part. And there was a debate about, should we try and, turn it into effectively a long weekend? So do it over a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, with a kind of arrival on Thursday evening, departure on Tuesday. Maybe that will make it easier for people who have very busy lives to kind of squeeze it into a weekend. And actually, after thinking about it long and hard, we decided that we're not going to do that. We're going to do a Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday. And really because we think it deserves that degree of commitment. This is not going on a jolly. It's not a kind of light kind of weekend break. It is work. And having that space on either side, we think is really important. And, we hope, and so far we have been fortunate to have participants who are choosing to come on these retreats because they view it with that degree of seriousness and commitment. And it is difficult. As I said earlier, most people that have come have serious responsibilities. These are, most of our participants are people in their mid-careers and mid-lives, and have families and have serious jobs and all sorts of commitments and responsibilities, but still find that time.
Yeah, and I would echo that. And I, over the years have been on retreat programs where it felt more about throughput. And I think a lot of the benefit does come from the space. So it's not just the modules, it's the space in between. And we just don't get enough of that in our lives. And I would just say that, it does require some planning to be able to come and do one of these, but it's worth it, and you just kind of have to look out far enough on the calendar and see. But I think it really is beneficial for folks to come down and kind of really, take some mental break from our lives, and we don't have strict policies on usage of technology. Folks are free to kind of check in with their families in the evenings, but we do find that people's experiences are better if you do kind of really give yourself some time off. Lucyne, anything to add, or should we go to
That's
the next
great.
question?
Yeah.
Okay. From Bruce, would like to attend your Jamaica retreat. However, want to go with my wife who does not want the therapy psychedelics. Is there a way to combine the two of us on different paths? Yes, Bruce, if you could just send one of us an email, and then we could probably go into that a bit more. But we have on occasion allowed couples to come down with one, not participating in ceremony.
Or book a call. Book a
Yeah,
call.
book a call.
Speak to the team direct.
And I think that's all of our questions, and it's
Amazing.
perfect timing.
Synchronicity.
So, synchronicity. Thank you so much, Rock and Lucyne.
Thank you, Lucyne and Neil and the
here.
team. Great. Well, I hope everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you for joining. I hope it was vaguely informative, at least what Lucyne had to say.
Yeah. You were very informative.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Bye.